I Hate Intros, the 7 Deadly Sins, Wrath of the Gods, Episode 1. We kick things off with a convoy of demons that are transporting humans to eat. Meliodas and Ban show up to save the people, and they learn that the villagers had fallen into a trap set by another village nearby. Hop on over to the demon side of things, where Zeldris informs us that Estarossa was badly wounded after the shot they had taken from Escanor and still hasn't regained consciousness. He also goes over the fact that Galen, Greyroad, and Fraudrin had all been defeated by the Sins. Monspi and Darieri are still missing after their attack on Meliodas had failed. We then meet a kid named Pelio, who finds out that his father was the one that set the trap for the captives that Meliodas and Ban had set free. He is working with the demons to protect himself and his son. When the village didn't meet the proper quota, the demon collecting the people goes to attack the guy transporting the captives. Pelio steps in to stand up to the demon and stop him. This leads to the entire village that was being repressed by the demons to try and fight back against them. Clearly that's not gonna go well, but Meliodas and the other Sins show up to save them. Long story short, fight sequence ensues and they defeat the demons. We learn that the kingdom of Leonis is peaceful again, but Britannia is still dealing with the threat of the demons and the 10 Commandments. To prepare for the war against them, King Bartra appoints the new Great Holy Knight and the weak side character Hauser. Episode 2. Meanwhile, Deanna and King are both unaware that Meliodas was actually brought back to life, so they still think that he was killed by Estarossa. They separated from the others shortly after his death and have been out of touch, living in the Fairy King's forest. The giants that Deanna lived with had moved into the forest as well, and they're all having a party. Gerhard hears the first Fairy King Gloxinia's voice, saying that he is happy she is still alive, and then everybody realizes that Deanna and King are missing. They were teleported to Droll and Gloxinia, who have a short skirmish with them and quickly defeat Deanna and King. Gloxinia then heals them and says that they are going to train the two. Back when Droll was king of the giants and Gloxinia was king of the fairies, they had fought against the demons. Given the circumstances at the time, they ended up joining the commandments, but now they are reconsidering their paths. Gloxinia uses a spell to send them both back 3,000 years in time, with King inhabiting Gloxinia's body and Deanna being in Droll's body. They are immediately confronted by young Meliodas and Elizabeth, who turns out to be a goddess in this time. The four of them go to save a village under attack by some demons. In the last scene, King and Deanna run into Calmadios, one of the past members of the 10 Commandments. Episode 3. King and Deanna realize that they're a lot stronger as Gloxinia and Droll, so they fight and injure Calmadios. Meanwhile, back in the present, Helbrum's spirit can be seen by Gloxinia, and he explains that unless they pass this test, they will never wake up. Anyways, back over to the fight where King and Deanna get the upper hand against Calmadios, and Meliodas steps in to KS them. Elizabeth uses her persuasion skills to talk down all of the other demons, and the rest of the humans are saved. Some of the people who survived wanted to join their group called Stigma, which is a three-way alliance between the fairies and the giants who are led by the goddesses. The leader wanting to join their group is Ro, and bears a close resemblance to Ban. After being accepted, they all return to Stigma's main base in the Fairy King's forest called Light of Grace. When they arrive, they are greeted by Narobasta and the leader of the 4 Archangels, Ludociel of Flash. While talking in private, Elizabeth finds out that Ludociel has made plans to eradicate the demons. She tries convincing him not to, hoping to make peace with the demons instead, but he refuses and is set on killing them all. Over to Gerhard, who is revealed to be Gloxinia's little sister. While they're talking, they see a huge force of demons led by Darieri and Monspeed approaching. Elizabeth is the first to approach the force in an attempt to prevent a conflict. Darieri agrees that avoiding a fight would be best as long as they hand over the captive demons that they had taken. This cues Ludociel to reveal an Omega Ark, containing thousands of captive demons imprisoned in a state between life and death. Darieri has a strong response to this because one of the captives is her sister. He has been using these captive demons to lure out the commandments in order to fight them. Now that they've served their purpose, he kills all of the demons, sending Darieri into a rage, and she punches Elizabeth because she thinks she's in on it. In the last scene, we see that Ludociel isn't the only Archangel who's shown up to the fight. Episode 4. We get the introduction of Tarmiel of Ocean, who is another one of the 4 Archangels. And the 3rd Archangel participating in the trap is Sariel of Tornado. The 2 Archangels summon another Omega Ark, destroying the entire demon army that had showed up in one shot. Only the 10 Commandment members survive the attack and retaliate against the Archangels, but can't damage them. Over to Ludociel, who tasks Narabasa with guarding the gate to the celestial realm, since that is where their reinforcements will come from. As he goes to join the fight, Gother and Maelstrom infiltrate the base and use their powers to control Nerabasta. Just as the commandments start getting in some good shots, Ladosiel shows up to ensure that the odds stay in their favor. Ladosiel is by far the most powerful of the Archangels, so the commandments don't stand a chance. In order to keep up, Derriere and Maelstrom sacrifice 6 of their 7 hearts as tribute to become more powerful. This is forbidden magic that few know, and even amongst the 10 commandments, it's considered taboo. That's because it turns them into the most diabolical being of all, called Indra. Only individuals with power levels over 50,000 can withstand the transformation without dying. The cocky dickhead Ladosiel isn't feeling so confident anymore after they withstand one of his attacks. He calls out for Tarmiel and Sariel to come help, but they are both quickly defeated in one attack from Maelstrom, leaving Ladosiel on the back foot. Their battle has laid waste to the land, and both sides are ready to fight to the death until Elizabeth stops them in the last scene. Episode 5. Elizabeth casts the spell Let There Be Light on Maelstrom and Derriere to purge them of their Indra forms. Ladosiel sees this as his opportunity to kill them, so Meliodas has to step in to deter him. Tarmiel and Sariel ignore their orders from Ladosiel and instead aid Elizabeth in the purifying. With all of them working together, the spell works and both of them are returned to their original forms. Again, Ladosiel goes to kill both of them now that they're unconscious, but is stopped by King Indienne. Getting frustrated, he then phones in help from Nerabasta and tells her to summon Mael. This snaps her out of her trance, and she realizes that Gother and Maelstrom are there. They are in the process of transforming the gate to the celestial realm into a gate to the demon realm, so Nerabasta calls for help from the humans in the Fairy King's forest. As it turns out, they were actually working with the demons, and proceed to slaughter everybody nearby to prevent them from getting to the gate. King can sense this trouble, so he starts to head back with Diane to see what's happening. While heading there, they run into Gother, who is trying to prevent them from reaching the gate also. Hop on over to Maelstrom, who has bought enough time and has completed the transformation. She then realizes that she had been manipulated by Gother to make her think that she was opening a gate to the demon realm. In reality, she had actually opened a gate to the demon realm's prison. This has set Gother's real body free, exposing to King and Diane that they were just talking to a doll created by him. All of his senses were connected to the doll and was his only connection to the outside world while he was in prison. It's been 500 years since the Demon King made him one of the 10 commandments and put him in the Demon Realm prison. The reason now is the time he made his jailbreak is to put an end to the Holy War. Episode 6. King and Diane talk with the real Gother, who tells them that there is an uprising going on by the humans at Stigma's base. Diane has some more questions for Gother, so King goes ahead without her. She tells him that the war is supposed to stop today, and he reveals that he plans to put an end to the war at the cost of his own life. He brings his doll online and tells him that his life is his own now, meaning that he will have to make his own decisions from here on. Even though their levels of intelligence are the same, emotionally the doll is equivalent to a baby, so he starts crying and begging him to stay. Gother, who knows that Diane is from the future, makes the request that when they get back to their time, Diane will become his doll's friend and be his moral compass when he goes astray. Over to Gerhard, who tries to reason with Ro to stop the fighting and refuses to kill him when she has the chance. She had let her guard down while talking to him and is attacked by another human who cuts off her wings and legs. Ro then steps in and kills the man in order to save her life. After that, she explains that she didn't kill him when she had the chance because she had looked into his memories and saw a young girl like her. He knew the girl when they were both young, but her along with the rest of his village were killed by Stigma members. He speculates that their reasoning was because they had found an injured demon and nursed him back to health. King shows up and sees Ro, who is trying to take Gerhard to get healed. Thinking that she's dead and that Ro was the one responsible, he nearly kills him, but stops himself at the last second. The situation reminded him of how he attempted to kill Ban, so he decides against it. Ro is still killed by the spear though, and then he sees that the real Gloxinia had gone through with killing Ro in the past. He then wakes up from the test and finds Gloxinia waiting for him. Gloxinia explains that he had killed Ro back then, but even after that, his grief and pain didn't go away. Instead, he targeted all humans and Stigma since they didn't protect his sister. Before he knew it, he was a part of the 10 Commandments on his quest for revenge. Meanwhile, Diane is still in the past world where Zeldris had traveled through the gate and approaches Diane and the 2 Gothers in the last scene. Episode 7. Zeldris informs Gother that the Demon King is pissed that he escaped from prison prison and that he's gonna have to return or Zeldris will be forced to execute him. Diane fights Zeldris in order to buy time for the two Gothers to escape. Once he lands a blow on her, he temporarily strips her of her power. He goes on to explain that the Demon King had lent him his power, which is why he's so strong. She is then given the ultimatum of joining the 10 Commandments or being killed on the spot. The test entails that Diane must take a separate path from Droll, but also cannot die in order to pass. This means that no matter which one she chooses, she will fail the test and never return to her body. Zeldris also makes the observation that Droll is an outsider amongst the giant race because of his rare appearance. Diane can relate to this because she was an outcast also, since she didn't really like fighting, which is what the giants pride themselves on. She then suddenly wakes back up in her body, and everybody is confused as to how she got out of the ultimatum. Turns out she just had to run away from Zeldris instead of choosing one or the other. Feel like he would have just killed her, but I'll play along. Out of nowhere, she gets a little hot and bothered from seeing King, and so she grabs the little guy and kisses half of his face. He's a bit of a bitch, so he passes out, but when he comes to, he asks her why she had kissed him out of nowhere. She then explains that her memories from 200 years ago of when her and King had hung out while she was a child had returned. King was the one who had supposedly erased those memories, but as an apology and a gift to Diane, Gother had restored them. Diane confesses her love to King, and he reciprocates this, marking the start of their unorthodox relationship. Now we all know where this discussion is headed. How are they gonna fuck? So I did some brainstorming, and I think I have it. So hear me out. First, I thought King could do some sort of diver move using his magic to rotate himself and sprawl his arms about for maximum effectiveness, assuming of course that he has the lungs for it. And then I remember that Merlin actually gives her pills that can shrink her down to human size, rendering everything I just said to be completely irrelevant, but I still wanted to share that fucked up thought process with you, so, you know, you're welcome. We also see that King has finally sprouted a sad excuse for wings. Gerhard gets an apology from Gloxinia for killing Ro, and then not even checking on her to see if she was still alive. However, when Oslo sees Gloxinia, he has a hostile reaction, but he calms down when he realizes that he wasn't there to hurt him. As it turns out, Gloxinia realizes that Oslo is actually the reincarnation of Ro, and he's been protecting Gerhard and King ever since. Diane and King haven't been back to Leonis in a while, so they decide to go and check in on things. King Bartra had a premonition of the Sins being reunited, so when Diane and King arrive using Oslo's teleportation, the others are there waiting for them. This is also where they learn that Meliodas had been resurrected. Diane also explains that her memories were restored, and as a part of her promise to the real Gother, she vows to return Dal Gother's heart to him. And on that note, King Bartra makes his entrance and shows Gother that he had finally found his missing heart. When Gother sees this, he has some cryptic flashbacks and takes off running, so all the Sins chase after him in the last scene. Episode 8. We learn that Meliodas knew Gother was a doll and explains that the real Gother was such a strong mage, even the Demon King couldn't believe it. That, of course, led to him being picked as the 10th commandment of selflessness, which has the ability to rob the memories and emotions of those who desire. Gother had made his doll look exactly like the woman he loved, but his trump card was that he gave it a dick, so that way he wouldn't accidentally lust after it. Dal Gother is confused and doesn't know why he panicked and ran when Bartra showed him the heart. As memories that Gother doesn't recognize start creeping in, he labels them as a memory malfunction and deletes his memory. Now we jump back 45 years, where Gother still has his emotions and heart intact. This is where he comes across the Princess of Leonis and Bartra's sickly younger sister, Nadja. They are currently in some caverns beneath the Leonis castle. She was out exploring, and after talking to him for a little bit, she has to go back. While she's gone, Gother realizes that he had been asleep since the end of the Holy War that happened 3,000 years ago, and then he comes across the real Gother's body. The young King Bartra had a premonition that the two would meet, so he wingmans Nadja, and the two of them end up spending a lot of time together. They fall in love with each other, but this doesn't last long as Nadja proceeds to die from her sickness. Gother is desperate to bring her back, so he tries replacing her heart with his, hoping to resurrect her, which obviously doesn't fucking work. Guards bust in, and they think he killed her, so he is to be executed for his crimes. Back to the present, where Diane stops him from erasing his memories again. They get into a fight where Gother realizes that she's gotten stronger, with her power level now sitting at 15,100. King steps in, and we see that his power had spiked also, sitting at 41,600. Meanwhile, Merlin had studied the magic heart that was given to him by the real Gother, and finds that there is actually no magic magic in it at all. This means that everything that Gowther was feeling had manifested itself from him and not some sort of magic. After this realization, Gowther regains his original powers and memories. Episode 9. While dealing with Drunk King, we see that Escanor was given some glasses by Merlin that keeps him from transforming until they are removed. Merlin is searching for Arthur, using some creepy minion with a bowl cut named Orlandi. Zeldris ends up coming across them while they're snooping around and curses Merlin. Now that Gowther has his memories back, Diane wants to know how the real Gowther went about ending the Holy War, but Doll Gowther doesn't feel too comfortable talking about it. Diane also tells Elizabeth that she saw a goddess that looked just like her 3,000 years ago with Meliodas. This makes her think about how Cain had told her something similar, about there being a Liz from Danafor that was Meliodas' girlfriend. Elizabeth confronts Meliodas in private about these stories, but he feigns ignorance because he isn't ready to tell her the whole truth yet. Merlin is revealed to be getting worse from her curse, so Elizabeth tries to intervene with her healing powers. She then comes face to face with Zeldris in her mind, and he tells her that she's the cursed goddess torturing his older brother Meliodas. He goes on to explain that she has died numerous times, and every time she does, she loses her memories, reincarnates, and meets Meliodas to fall in love all over again. This actually makes her happy to think that she got to spend so much time with Meliodas, and her only regret is that she can't remember it. Zeldris, on the other hand, insists that she shouldn't be happy, as she has been torturing Meliodas, so he returns the memories of her past lives in hopes of her realizing how cruel it is to him. She slips away from the others and still seems pretty happy that she's going to be able to remember it all. Later on, the Sins set out to free Camelot from the reign of demons. Ban is conflicted though, because Malescula is creating a barrier around the city. If they succeed in killing Malescula, the spell keeping Elaine alive will end and she'll go back to being dead. It's revealed that Elizabeth has already started getting her memories back and is talking about her past lives. Her eyes revert back to the goddess eyes that she originally had, and then she collapses. Meliodas is distraught and explains to everybody that once her memories have returned, she will die in 3 days. Episode 10. Elizabeth being a goddess and Meliodas being a demon have fallen in love with each other 3,000 years ago and went against their own kind. Because of this, the Demon King and the ruler of the goddess clan, the supreme deity, step in to punish them. They tried fighting back but are quickly outmatched and killed by the two rulers. Or so they thought, but then Meliodas wakes up and all of his wounds are healed. Elizabeth, on the other hand, wasn't so lucky and is still dead by his side. While he was unconscious, the Holy War had come to an end and he finds that he isn't aging. Thinking Elizabeth was dead, Meliodas had wandered around Britannia by himself until one day he came across the first reincarnation of Elizabeth. She, of course, doesn't remember him, but they end up becoming friends. After confirming that she was the goddess Elizabeth when her powers start coming back, Meliodas tries explaining her past life. This triggers her memories to start returning, and she tells him that the two of them have been cursed. She makes him promise that no matter what, even if it means her dying, he will break the curse. 3 days later, Final Destination takes effect and Elizabeth is killed. Before she had died, she explained the curse to Meliodas. Meliodas has eternal life, while she has eternal reincarnation. Her memories are wiped every time she dies, and when she is reincarnated, she will always without fail find and fall in love with Meliodas. If she ever regains all of her memories in full, no matter what happens or who is around to protect her, she will always die in 3 days in front of Meliodas. Meliodas has gone through this cycle 106 times, meaning that this is the 107th iteration of Elizabeth. We see that one of her lives had ended when she was just a child, while another one of her lives she had died of old age, never regaining her memories. The cycle would always repeat itself though, regardless of the circumstances. Now we're gonna jump ahead to the moments leading up to the birth of the current iteration of Elizabeth. Meliodas was working with Merlin to find a way to break the curse in Danafor 16 years ago. Merlin suggests using the Coffin of Eternal Darkness, which was a relic that the goddesses borrowed from the 4 races to seal away the demons. They could then use the coffin to remove the goddess's seal and release the 10 Commandments in hopes of getting to Zeldris, who is still wielding the Demon King's power. Because the Demon King's power is what placed the curse, maybe Zeldris could use it to lift the curse. Meliodas refuses this idea idea because it would be too dangerous and Zeldris hates him, so it's unlikely that he'll help him. However, they didn't know that Frodron was already gathering the pieces to form the coffin. The last thing he needed to break the seal was the blood of a goddess, but there was none left after the Holy War. Frodron tries to bypass this by sacrificing all of the humans of Danafor as a replacement, but the ritual fails since the human blood won't work. He then conveniently runs into Liz and recognizes her as the goddess Elizabeth from the Holy War. As a knight, she tries to bring him to justice, but is severely injured by him. Meliodas comes in just in time to complete the cycle and watches Liz die. At this point, he had reached his limit of watching her die over and over, so he loses control of his power and destroys all of Danafor. A couple days later, he comes across a woman who gives him baby Elizabeth before dying. Naturally, Elizabeth is hoping for him to end the curse and release him from this eternal suffering. After story time's over, everybody can refocus on their goal to liberate Camelot from the demons. The problem is that it's guarded by the dimensional distortion that originated from the city of Colon D, so that's where they're heading. When they arrive, they find Zeldris there waiting for them, so Meliodas goes ahead to attack him. Episode 11. We get a quick side story that Colon D was laid to waste by Helbram when he was still in his human form. But anyway, Zeldris was actually a fake to lure out Meliodas. Melescula then uses her cocoon of darkness to separate him from the others. While searching for Meliodas, the remains of the Colandiers that were killed by Helbram started coming back to life and fighting them. Over to Meliodas, whose power is being absorbed by Melescula's spell and then used to empower the skeletons. This isn't enough though, and the skeletons are dealt with by the Sins. It looks like it's over, but then Diane gets mind controlled through the grudges of the people that Helbram had slaughtered. The spirits end up raising her power level to 48,000, and she starts attacking the other Sins. Helbram then appears to take responsibility for killing all those people in Colon D. King's helmet, where Helbram's soul resided, is crushed by Diane, and after that, the corrupted aura starts to go away a bit. Some of the souls still aren't satisfied though, and this forces Elizabeth to step in, casting a spell to purge them. Episode 12. Elizabeth heals everybody that was injured in the fighting, and after that approaches Merlin, saying that she knew her when she was around 12 or 13. Melescula suddenly shows up and turns into a massive cobra to fight the Sins. She targets Ban first since he was the one that cost her 6 of her 7 hearts. Elaine sees Ban in danger, causing her power to spike to 21,050 and allowing her to save him. Meliodas had managed to break free but had to unleash all of his power to do so, completely reverting to his old persona. Apparently, he had switched to his assault mode, which is something even the Ten Commandments feared would happen when he was still their leader. Escanor volunteers his services and Merlin locks him inside her perfect Q power with Meliodas. While Escanor and Meliodas fight to see who's stronger, Melescula takes advantage of the opportunity to attack the others. She is quickly defeated, but Merlin says the reason she lost is because she didn't fight with her true power. Elaine is prepared to die in order to kill Melescula, but Elizabeth stops them and instead uses her power to neutralize Melescula's miasma. This turns her into a cute little snake, and Merlin captures her as well as getting rid of the dimensional distortion. I'm gonna be doing part 2, and you can find that in the left side whenever I'm finished with it, or you can check out all the 7 Deadly Sins recaps in the playlist on the right side. You can also find the links in the description below, and the only thing I hate more than intros is outros.